Okay, this is part 2. I'm going to go ahead and factor 3 more problems. There are a couple of things that pop up here on the second 2 examples that you don't see very often. They're not really that hard to deal with. You just have to take a hard look at it, and it'll end up being, I think, a little clearer after I do the problems. Okay, the first one, x squared minus 7x plus 10. The first step, x and x. Okay. Now when we look at the second one, we're going to find factors of c that add to b. Hope you realize c is just the whole number, or the number that's out there on the end. Factors of c that add to b. b equals negative 7 in this case, doesn't it? So if I start writing down factors, 1 times 10, negative 1 times negative 10, those don't work. And let's see, 2 times 5, well that at least it adds up to be 7, but it doesn't add up to be negative 7. It's negative 2 times negative 5. So that's the pair right there. When you multiply them, you get positive 10, and when you add them, you get negative 7. So I'm going to write minus 2 minus 5. Now something I didn't cover in the last video, and it probably does bear saying. If your answer was x minus 5, x minus 2, if you wrote exactly the same binomials, but you had the order flipped, those are identical. They're both the same. Okay? Now, we could take either of these and multiply them out. I'm going to go ahead and skip the check on this one. We're going to check these two right here. But I'm just going to skip it. I'm telling you that either of these answers is correct. Okay, now I've got x squared minus 3xy minus 10y squared. And all I have to do is say, oh, but wait, there's y's. We can't. Yes, we can do it if there's y's. If you look at the x squared that's in the front, if I would have checked this one, x times x gives me x squared, doesn't it? So the first 2 terms in the binomial is where the x squared comes from. If you look at the last term, the positive 10, it comes from the negative 2 times the negative 5. Negative times the negative is a positive, and that's the 10. Well, that's where that comes from. Well, if you need to get a y squared, you're just going to add a y onto your last term. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and go x and x, and I'm going to go y and y. Okay, I need to get a y squared on my last term. Well, y is in that position, we'll get the y squareds there. And you'll see here pretty quick that the xy will appear in the middle term. You'll see it when we check it. Alright, so I need factors of negative 10 that add to negative 3. Well, let's see, 1 times negative 10, no. Negative 1 times 10, that won't work. Then negative 2 times 5, and 2 times negative 5. Well, the pair that multiplies to be negative 10 and adds to be negative 3 is 2 and negative 5. So I'm going to write plus 2 and minus 5 there. Now I want to go ahead and check this because I want to show you that the middle term will work out just fine. X times x, x to the second. X times negative 5y, negative 5xy. 2 times 2y times x, positive 2xy. 2y times negative 5y, negative 10y squared. Combine the middle two, and you get your negative 3xy. There's your x squared. There's your negative 10y squared. It multiplies out. It gives us the right answer. Now I just want to erase, because we have generally expected you to circle your answer. We'll make sure that this is the answer. All of this work done down here was just to check it. The final problem has an x to the fourth, an x to the second, and a number. Now, I told you earlier that the form was ax to the second plus bx plus c. If your exponents are multiples of 2, okay, I should say 2 to the x power. So they can be 2, 1, 4, 2. The next one would be 8, 4. They have to be things that 2 times 2 times 2, etc. If they're in that multiple, you can still factor using trinomials. Just think about it here. Instead of x and x, because x times x is x to the second, isn't it? We're going to need an x to the second and an x to the second there. Because x to the second times x to the second is x to the fourth. And when we multiply it out, you'll see that the variable again works out for the middle term. What multiplies to be negative 13? Well, there's only two things. 1 times negative 13 and negative 1 times positive 13. 13 is a prime number, so 1 in the number is all that works. Well, we're going to end up using 1 and negative 13. So I'll write plus 1 minus 13, and look at what happens when I go on ahead and I multiply this out. X to the fourth minus 13x to the second plus x to the second minus 13. Combine the like terms in the middle. There's your negative 12x to the second. Anyway, there's 3 more problems for you to look at. A couple of these were a little closer to some special cases, but they're pretty easy to handle. Take your time and good luck.